And the lady of the moment is Hurricane Melissa. And we'll be hearing a lot about Hurricane Melissa today because there has been no significant change in terms of the magnitude of this system, the strength of its winds. Our satellite imagery will just give you a good picture of what is really happening out there over the waters and even over the land, because Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane, continues to barrel its way. Well, not barrel its way because it's still moving pretty slowly, but moving toward the southwestern coastline of Jamaica. We are starting to experience quite a few of the impacts of this system because we have been experiencing rainfall over much of the island, especially in the west and the south of the country. We've been having some periods of heavy rainfall, mostly moderate rainfall. There have also been gusts of wind and some sustained strong winds over sections of the island. The gusts, of course, going well into tropical storm force as we went through the night last night and as we have gone through this morning so far. We recognize that the system has not yet made landfall. The center is still some distance away from the coastline, just about 70 to 75 kilometers from the southwestern coastline, and it is still moving toward the northeast. So it is moving closer and closer to the coastline of Jamaica. I mentioned that it has been moving slowly, but it has been moving a little bit faster than it was previously because it's now moving at 11 kilometers per hour. That's just about 7 miles per hour. And it is expected to make that turn to be more in a direction, moving in a direction toward the northeast, which is a slight shift toward the east, more so than it is going at this time. So it will continue to move toward the island, making its entry on the southwestern coastline. We do expect, let me move this slide forward a little bit so you can see and get an idea of where we're expecting it to move. First, let me just point to those circles that you're seeing on the image. Where the center is located, the inner, I refer to it as the inner core, which is that orange area that's surrounding it. And then you have the outer band, of the greens that extend across the country, which is what most of us have been experiencing thus far. But the inner core that we speak of is that orange area that we expect to be making some impact on the island, and that's where the stronger winds are concentrated. Also, the heavier rainfall is in that general area. We did say that the system is a Category 5 hurricane at this time, and when it makes landfall, it is expected to still be a Category 5 hurricane. That means it will cause catastrophic damage, life-threatening damage. There is very little that can stop a Category 5 hurricane. And regardless of the where you are in the parish of Westmoreland or St. Elizabeth, if you are under the impact of those Category 5 hurricane force winds, you will be having significant difficulty even with infrastructure that's in the area. So ensure that you are in the strongest area that you can. The recommendation from the Hurricane Center is that you would have as many walls between yourself and the outside as you can, because it is important to reinforce yourself and to ensure that you are not left vulnerable to this system. We do expect that it will gradually be reduced in strength as it moves over the island. It will fall to a Category 4 maybe, and then Category 3 as it exits the country possibly. But in the meantime, when it makes landfall, which is expected, as you can see in this image here, to be somewhere near parity in western St. Elizabeth, that's somewhat to the east of Black River. So it will most likely make landfall in the western part of St. Elizabeth rather than in the eastern part of Westmoreland. And then it will continue moving toward the northeast. That is the direction of movement that is expected. It will continue over the northern part of St. Elizabeth and then move into southern Trelawney. And the exit is expected to be somewhere in Trelawney rather than in St. Anne. It would be most likely in the eastern end of Trelawney rather than St. Anne, where it makes its exit from the island of Jamaica. Here we see the area, this area of orange shows the outer bands of the system, where we are expecting to be experiencing impacts, heavy rainfall right across the length and breadth of Jamaica, also strong winds across the island. the amounts of rainfall that we expect. We see here again, we indicated that we would have between 20 and 30 inches, or 500 to 750 millimeters of rainfall affecting sections of the island. The area that is expected to be impacted mostly has been narrowed a little bit on the map. So you'll see that Jamaica's central parishes are most at risk and extending into the west of the island as well. And then some slightly lower figures are expected for the rest of the island, but still significant rainfall. 12 to 16 inches, 300 to 400 millimeters is nothing to scoff at. It's still a lot of rainfall, still expected to produce significant flooding. You might be saying that this system doesn't seem to be packing much of a punch because what you've been experiencing outside doesn't seem to be worthy of all the hurrah that we're creating about the system. But the truth is, it is still some distance away from the coast, expected to move closer and then move across the island, and that means that the impacts are going to be significantly greater than you've already been experiencing. Flooding is expected, landslides are expected, storm surge is expected, and of course those strong winds we will not be able to escape, especially if you're in the path of this system and in the path close to the eye of the system. The rest of the island, I mentioned the Category 5 hurricane force winds that will be experienced over parts of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland going into Trelawney, but we are expecting tropical storm force winds over the rest of the country. And so we all should be experiencing or looking out for the experience of tropical storm winds right across the island. Here we see on our picture some of the areas that are expected to be mostly inundated by storm surge that is also expected to come onshore. And this would be in those bays and inlets. In the area of Black River, we expect significant storm surge, although the center is now expected to be somewhat of Black River, so this might have to be updated slightly, but Black River will also experience storm surge. Storm surge could get as high as 13 feet. That's high. 13 feet is a couple of stories high. And so you need to be very much prepared for that kind of activity if you're in any of those bays or inlets along the coast of St. Elizabeth in particular, and even going into Clarendon. So those traditional areas of storm surge impact, like Portland Cottage, Rocky Point, those are areas that, because of the geography, we are expecting still to experience some amount of storm surge in those areas, although probably not as significant as we would have in St. Elizabeth along the coast. So anywhere, even along the coast of Manchester, parts of Alligator Pond and, Treasure Beach area should also be looking out for that kind of activity, and going eastward as far as parts of St. Catherine. And that is basically the presentation at this time. I'm sure you'll have some questions that will bring out some more information later. Thank you.